Welcome to Multifamily Grit, where we bring in the experts to share the pros and cons and celebrations and struggles of one of the most important industries in the U.S., multifamily property management. We are chatting with Jonathan Wogan, CEO and founder of Wogan Group, a multifamily real estate company dedicated to providing quality homes to renters. Jonathan is passionate about creating success in the property management company, for his team, his clients, and through investing. And before we get started, we are sponsored today by PropUp. If you haven't seen it yet, you're missing out. PropUp is the top facilities management system for real estate, handling unit turns, work orders, inspections, workflow automation, and team collaboration. It integrates with your PMS, replacing outdated systems that kept you in the dark to save time, cut costs, and enhance operations. Visit gopropup.com today. And as always, by Fortress, the only core property management operating system built with an emphasis for today's affordable operators. And don't forget, if you like what you hear today, please like and subscribe. John, thank you so much for being here. I know you mentioned that speaking like this isn't your strong suit, but I know our listeners will learn so much from you. So before we get started, I'd love for you to share with our listeners how you got started in the multifamily industry.
First of all, thank you for having me. It actually was sort of like dumb luck, really. I was in college and somebody bought a property near the dormitory I was living in. Somebody from New York. I was in college in Connecticut. And they went into the school and just reached out to one of the professors asking if somebody in the school could maybe watch over the property. And being a business major, they recommended me. We got in touch.
So interesting.
And that's sort of how I got started. That eventually grew into maybe 1,000 units in Waterbury, Connecticut. And I took a partner and we were managing together.
While you were in school?
While I was in school.
Wow.
Initially in school. Eventually I
Yeah.
was out of school and then we made a real business out of it. When I moved to Memphis, it kind of took a different approach because I learned it's really a business. Meaning in
Yeah.
Connecticut, it was more mom and pop. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know about HD supply. We didn't know about property management software.
Yeah.
It was very, very um, just prehistoric type management. And then when I moved to Memphis and got a job with the normal company or whatever, a real company, so then we started to learn more about how this is really done.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was just kind of out and up. Every transition was a new company with a different position until we eventually were able to start our own deal.
Your own deal being Wogan Group.
Our own deal being initially Lennox Companies, which
Okay.
turned into Wogan Group. But yeah, that was in 2014.
Okay. And what did you start Lennox companies? What were you focused on when you first got started?
So when I was actually working for a company called Freeman Webb,
Okay.
and one of the properties that we managed for a New York group sold to these two investors who had some private equity out of I think South Carolina. And when they bought that property, they met me. I was a regional manager, and they tried to get me to start a company with them just for this one property.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense for me. It was a little too risky at the time. But about a year later, they bought over that course of those 12 months, they bought 3 more properties.
Okay.
And they stayed in touch. They came back to me. And eventually the 3 of us started the company together. So they had a small part of that ownership, and I had a very, very small piece of the real estate. And those 3 properties collectively over 4 years grew to 20 properties.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then that became Wogan Group today.
That ultimately became Wogan Group.
Yeah.
They each went their own way and sold a lot of the portfolio and did their own things, and then I kind of went my own way.
And what does Wogan Group do today?
Primarily, we third-party manage multifamily real estate for people in the Southeast.
Yeah.
Our primary function.
And from your perspective, because I know you and I have talked a lot about property management, multifamily property management specifically, and the pros and cons of it. From your perspective, what is the current state of multifamily operations today? What are the pros and cons?
Interesting. I think the state of it right now is kind of stagnant. It's the market's forcing everybody to get back to real fundamentals.
Yeah.
On the operations side, and on the investment side, it's turmoil. I think it's total turmoil. People are in deals that they were hoping to be out of by now, that their loans dictated that they should be out of by now, that their performers were giving them a lot of excitement that they could get out at a good level, and they're not able to. So I think everyone on the investment side is trying to figure out what to do and how to handle upcoming loan expirations and poor performance and performers that are not proving out. And then on the operations side, we're really just trying to figure out how to manage those deals in an organic way because sort of the upsides are coming back to reality a little bit.
Yeah. It's really interesting. We hear this a lot, and I've been hearing this a lot, that multifamily needs to get back to the basics. Like we over the past few years, things have we've kind of ridden this wave of thinking that tech was going to solve all of our problems, and maybe that it had to, especially because of the pandemic and post pandemic. We felt like tech had to solve all these problems. I think a lot of us are looking up and seeing that tech isn't solving all of our problems, and that we really do need to get back to the basics. What does that look like for Wogan Group? What sort of things are you guys doing?
Yeah, so back to the basics is an interesting thing to me. It's our tagline for the year, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like you said, it's everybody's kind of focus. But what's more interesting to me is I think it means different things for everybody.
Yeah.
For us, back to basics, it doesn't mean not utilizing tech and finding ways to incorporate it, but it means going back to the fundamentals of pure leasing and customer service, quick responses, positive reviews, um, uh, prospect screening that's healthy, that's not focused on big occupancy jumps, but real good healthy economic occupancy. So to us, those are kind of the basics that we are referring to when we talked back to the basics. But I do think tech is still a big piece of it. It's just not the solution. It has to be incorporated into what we're doing and make the things that we need to do better and more efficient and easier. So it's sort of enhancing our basics. But I agree that at one point we thought it was going to change everything. I don't think that that's happening.
Yeah, I agree. I still think that I actually think that multifamily operators have pushed past that, have realized that tech isn't going to change everything and that we do really need to focus on the basics. I sometimes wonder if investors and owners have gotten that message just yet. I think that there's still a lot of maybe hope or dreams that like tech is going to solve this problem, the problem of not being able to find talent and hire enough people on site and keep those people happy and motivated and doing a good job. So I'd love to ask you because you work with these owners and you're so close to them. And I mean, in fact, I didn't even know the story of how Lennox was started, but obviously these owners really trust you and your thoughts on how to manage these assets. What do you think that owners are looking for from property management companies today? And what do you think that they would define as a successful property management company?
I think that for me, our clients, our owners, I don't think they have a strong opinion of tech the way you described. I think that uh, because of the situation they're in, I think that they're really looking to us for out of the box ideas,
Hmm.
creativity. They're trying to just create these deals to be sustainable.
Yeah.
They're just they're not even looking for big upsides at this point, or many of them are not.
Yeah.
They're just hoping that they don't go in the wrong direction. So I don't think that they're looking to us, and I don't think that they're very much in tune with the tech. I think a lot of my clients, at least, they're not going to the conferences that you and I might go to that see some of these products.
Hmm.
So they're not even aware necessarily of what might be out there. I think they're just looking for a company that can communicate with them in a very transparent way, that can be honest with them, and that can offer solutions. I think a lot of owners are tired of companies that are just telling them what the problems are without any new ideas. I spoke to a group this morning on the ride here actually that is talking to us about making a possible shift, and the primary reason is because the current operator has a box, and that box is very rigid.
Hmm.
And despite all the encouragement that the investors have provided, they're not able and willing and interested in moving outside that box. They're just looking for somebody to come in and say, how can we take a deal which doesn't have a bright future, which taxes are about to go up, which has a floating rate, and find a way just to make it work? They're not even looking for distributions in most cases. They're just hoping to stop the bleeding a little bit
Yeah.
and get to the next day.
The way you just described that asset literally, like, made my chest tighten. I mean, but we're seeing that all over the place. But I actually it pains me from an operating standpoint, not from an investment standpoint. I've actually never been actively involved in an asset that had the floating rates and the issues on it. I've been a part of a commercial asset that had to do a capital call just because of the decline of commercial in a lot of cities. This one was in Nashville, but other than that, I've not really been involved in a multifamily asset that has had that issue, which I just had never invested in one that had that sort of structure. So, but I have been involved in a ton of them that we had to try to manage through that scenario, and it's insanely difficult. I I would say that the management companies that I've been involved with have been out of the box thinkers for the most part, or at least wanted to be, but I still think that this is really tough. So, what are you doing, or what is Wogan Group doing to create that transparency and providing solutions and coming up with ideas? How are you doing that?
So on the transparency side, we believe that all of our clients really have to have an asset manager, or at least one of the sponsors serve that role,
Mhm.
so that we can have our calls, and we know that our reports are being read. Sometimes they may think that they're overbearing to us because of the questions that come in, but we actually do appreciate it. The worst thing that we can find is a group that sort of disappears for 6 months and
Yeah.
then pops up and says, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" When throughout the whole 6 months, we've sent reports, I've sent text messages, we've updated on different things, we've asked questions, we're not getting answers. For us, that's a nightmare situation.
Mhm.
So we view every one of our clients in the best positive light in terms of a partner. It's hard to really be a partner when you're not invested, but I think that we are as close as you can get to a partner without being invested,
Yeah.
because I want them to be successful. I want their investors to not have a negative perception of them, of us, of the property, of the industry. Um, and I know so much of our growth is word of mouth that we have to be that's our investment in the property. We want
Mhm.
them to be successful. So from a transparency standpoint, we're going to communicate as best we can, as often as we can, and almost demand that they have somebody for us to have that relationship with. That was part of the call this morning. That's been part of several other calls where we haven't had that relationship, and it's been one of the primary problems. Um, as far as out of the box, um, we just try to do what the property needs. And a lot of times, you look at what the submarket's doing, what other people are doing, who you're losing people to, and you try to
Mhm.
figure out why you're not being successful and put something new in place. A lot of it is tech driven. I mean, as you know, for us, we're working now, starting to work more and more with prop up,
Mhm.
which gives us an off-site view of what's going on the maintenance side. We are putting in place, just the other day, I signed a deal with Elise AI, which you know about,
Yep.
which is going to give us faster communication with prospects and with residents, and hopefully that's going to be successful in sort of this back to basics alliance.
Mhm.
Um, we are working on a different idea for tenant liability insurance, different than what we've done in the past, and we're about to sign that deal. Um, so we're always going to be looking for these things. Our tech stack can only be so big, but a lot of the out of the box is going to come from tech, but they just have to be things that specifically support our needs,
Yeah.
and not just this golden goose that, you know, oh, we can do this and save a bunch of payroll. I think that that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wanna go back to what you were saying about demanding that the client have a sponsor that's available for you for the calls. I think that's so smart. Some of the things that we've seen be really successful is actually giving the client direct access to the systems that you're working in so that they can see what's happening on the asset. You and I have talked about this before. I think having that extreme transparency and visibility into what's happening day to day. I was actually reading a book last night called Accountability. I think that's the name of it. But there was a quote in there that said that 90% of conflicts and disagreements arise from miscommunication or misunderstanding. So it's the same problem. If you're not communicating, if someone isn't available to dig in and isn't reading the reports and doesn't understand what's going on, then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you have this massive problem that you can't walk back from. Whereas if you've just been communicating about it the whole time, and I think most property management companies really try to do a good job. They do really. they see their success is tied up in the owner's success. But if you're not working on it together, it creates a lot of just misunderstanding, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So,
And we give all of our clients access to our systems. I don't think most of them utilize it.
yeah.
Um, but that sort of gets on them a little bit. I know
Mhm.
some of them do a lot, like daily.
Mhm.
The only challenge I see with it, and we still do it regardless, is you're relying a lot on your site teams. Not an unreasonable amount. It's actually reasonable, but it's just the reality is that you're relying on the site teams to update things in real time.
Yeah.
And when that doesn't happen, when they don't process a move in for a couple of days, or they don't close out the
Yep.
work orders instantly, and then you have somebody in a faraway land kind of, you know, staring at the screen and pulling these reports, and then you start to get a lot of questions. But
Yeah.
um, that there just has to be an understanding that the people inside are also kind of busy and they kind of take their task in stride. But for the most part, we try to give access, and we want them to look at it. I'd rather them pull a rent roll than ask us to send them a rent roll.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
they have all the access that they need.
Yeah. I agree with that completely. So speaking of access to tech and the transparency in tech, you mentioned one of our sponsors today is Prop Up, and Prop Up was actually a sponsor today at your recommendation. So I'd love to know why. Why did you recommend them?
Well, thank you for telling them that. uh, if they're listening, now they're gonna thank me. They'll probably bill me. Um, we're working with them more and more. I think it's a really good solution. We're looking at an investment with them as well. Um, I think it's a solution that ultimately the site teams will appreciate if they can bring themselves to utilize it to its fullest. But for the asset managers, both on the management side and the owner side, it gives a level of access that they so far don't have.
Mhm.
Um, and it also brings a level of analytics that I haven't seen in any other solution when it comes to vacancy loss and turn times, and to really be able to study. And when you talk about back to the basics, this is it, right?
Yeah.
There was a period before COVID where 5 to 7 day turn time was standard. We all knew it. We can accomplish it. And then all of a sudden, staffing challenges and supply challenges, and just always trying to put out fires left and right. So our turn times turned into 15 days and 20 days. So we need to bring that back to normal so we can operate well, and our leasing team has good expectations, um, and the system will help us hopefully track that and create that success.
Yeah. For what it's worth, the Prop Up team and I go pretty far back. So when we actually mentioned that you had recommended them for the sponsorship, they were honored. So no,
Okay,
you're not
good.
going to get billed, or at least if you do, just send it to me. But no, they were really excited and flattered by it. And honestly, I love what they're doing. So they, very similarly to my story with Fortress, Prop Up came out of a need that they were having as owners and operators,
Right.
and they saw a pretty big hole in the market and something that they really needed to get their arms wrapped around, very similarly to what you guys are experiencing, which was just essentially visibility into what is draining the turn time. Like, if turn times are taking 9 days, but we want them to be 5, like, what specifically is happening? And what I love about their solution is that it's very similar to a lot of the workflow tools that we all use today, like with the Kanban boards, like Jira, Trello. It's very similar and customizable. So I really like what they're doing. But even bigger than that, I really like the approach that a lot of companies are taking right now in finding a lane of expertise, like finding a niche, whether that's Elise AI or Prop Up, like finding something that they're specifically really good at and focusing in on it rather than trying to do everything. I think that there's a lot of value in that. And I know you mentioned um, potentially investing uh, in Prop Up. So I know that that's a key to your long term success is investing in assets and companies. So when it comes to prop tech, what would you be looking for if you were investing in a company? What are the things that you would look at?
So the first thing is I have to use it.
Yeah.
It has to be something which I would use. Otherwise, I'm not interested. I'm not going to stay up to date with it. I'm not going to help them on their journey. So I have to be sold on the product myself, and it has to help my cause.
Mhm.
I don't think me or my group are going to become tech investors on a more broad scale. It's going to be things that are very specific to our industry, to what we do, and that we can incorporate into our day to day business. That's the very first thing. I think the second thing goes into how it's going to integrate with other pieces. So for us, as you know, Fortress is sort of the backbone, and everything that we use is gonna have to find a way to work with Fortress.
Mhm.
If it not maybe it doesn't now, but if it ultimately can't find a way to work with Fortress, so it's not really a solution for us. Ultimately, that has to be the goal for us. And I think the third thing is the people that are behind it. In the case of Prop Up, I know I've come to know William very well.
Mhm.
I've met his partner. I've had lots and lots of calls with them. Obviously, I know Rachel, who does a lot of their sales. So the people and the culture speaks to me a lot. They're not this big hedge fund driven company that's that's has a lot of red tape and a lot of pieces around it. But there are people I could talk to face to face. I have their cell phone numbers. We can communicate that way. I can share an idea. They can share an idea with me. And ultimately, if we invest, I do expect maybe they may not want it, but I do expect that I would be involved, at least from an idea standpoint, just to share things. I don't want to be any more involved in that, but I would like to help them get to the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that I agree with you. I know Will and his team pretty well, and I love who they are as people, and I think it makes it so much easier to get behind. And that being said, actually, I have a question that is a little off the cuff, but really stemming from the story that you told about how you got into real estate. So you mentioned how important it was the people behind the scenes and determining whether or not to invest in them. You specifically have had some pretty wild experiences, incredible opportunities in your life from someone calling you out specifically and saying, like, "I want you to come do this thing in Connecticut while you were in school, and then in Memphis while you were a regional." Owners coming to you and saying, "I want you to come run this or create this company for me." What do you think it is about you? What did you bring to the table, or what did they see in you that caused them to do that? Sorry, I
Oh,
know you are so uncomfortable with this question, but I think that there are so many listeners out there that would love to know, like, how those opportunities come up and how they can find those opportunities for themselves.
you know, I really don't know. I think there is there are some strings being pulled that kind of move me along a certain path. Um, you could call it dumb luck, you could call it a dozen other things, but I think initially that's really what it was. I don't think anybody saw anything. There's a classroom of people, there's a group of people, there's a room full of people. A lot of them are doing similar things, and um, maybe I was just the first person that was noticed in the room. I think later on, when I was with Freeman Webb as a regional and start thinking about starting a company, so there I think it maybe the the strings were probably being pulled still, but I think that I had a really good relationship with the investor that was coming through the due diligence process, and we
Mhm.
talked a lot, and I was honest with him, and
Yeah.
I didn't, it's a very tricky spot when you're working for the company selling a property, and you're also trying to build a relationship with the person buying the company, buying the
Yeah,
property, because
it is.
I can't, I shouldn't really sell all the secrets, but I also want to gain the confidence of the next guy because that's a relationship that could be beneficial and meaningful also.
Yeah.
So that's something to dance around a little bit, and I think I dance around it pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really valuable. I highly doubt that it was just dumb luck that pulled you out of that first opportunity, but I'll let that one slide. But the second one, something that I've noticed in working with you is that you ask a lot of questions, like all the time. You're asking questions about what people think about opportunities or how they're doing things in their business, and which I think garners a lot of trust. And then you similarly share your experiences and opportunities. So I'm a huge fan of that, and I think that's a huge part of creating personal success, being open and asking lots of questions. Okay, so the last question that I have for you,
Oh
um,
wow.
something that I just want to end on. I hope this one's actually pretty easy. I really do. You are extremely philanthropic, which is something that you and I are very similar about. We really believe in giving back in any way we can. And so as it is a passion that we share, I'd love to know, is there a and you support a lot of causes, but is there one that you'd love to promote here and share with our listeners?
Um,
Or more than one, if you can't come up with one of them, because I know you're really passionate about giving back. So
um, so there's kind of two avenues. There's a personal avenue, and then there's the business, the company avenue.
yeah,
So on the personal avenue, obviously, I'm part of a very, very tightly insulated community, and the causes I'm involved in speak to people that are part of that insulated community. I don't know that they're as exciting to the broader population, um, but I'm very involved in those institutions, the schools that are part of my community, the synagogue that's part of my community. There's a couple other things also. So my family is very involved in those things, and we try to help where we can and be part of what we can and support as much as we can. Um, on a broader level, as a company, so currently, and it kind of changes every couple of years, but currently we have an alliance with a group called Merge Memphis,
hmm
and Merge Memphis is um, it's an organization that was started specifically to help um, women who have gone through tough times, whether it's a bad relationship, whether it's just poor economics, whatever the case is, but they're having a difficult time supporting themselves.
hmm
So Emerge Memphis brings them in, and it's kind of a nice place for them to be. And throughout their time there, they are learning different trades, they're learning different skills, and the goal obviously is to eventually put them back on their own feet. Um, they have partnerships with companies for future jobs. They have housing scenarios that they try to work out. While they're there, they create their own products and sell them as part of their own fundraisers. Um, that's a group that we got involved in about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Somebody in my office is on the board of that group, and we've run a couple of fundraisers for them. Um, Another group that we're less involved in now, but it speaks to both of us, I think, a little bit. I'm sure you've heard of it, Shelters to Shutters.
yeah,
So we're a little
it's a
less
great group.
involved now, but we're only less involved because they don't really have a presence in Memphis, and they were
hmm
supposed to, and they never did. But Shelters to Shutters is a similar type idea, but it's not just for women; it's for everybody. Um, and and usually, I think the statistics show that most people in those situations really have the majority of people have talents, they have skills, they have what to offer. They just don't have the opportunity to do it,
Yeah,
or they haven't had the opportunity. So those two organizations give people with talents, with skills, with ideas, with creativity, a, a way to express that and to let it be meaningful and contribute. And so I like those causes a lot.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Shelters to Shutters actually has a new name.
Oh,
I can't remember what it is. Can you see if you can find that for me? Just 'cause I want to share it with our listeners, especially because of the value that they provide. So they, I will not be reading their mission statement appropriately, but their new name is Entryway, and they actually seek to eliminate the cycle of poverty by providing housing first. So essentially, by saying multifamily operators, if you have units that are vacant, would you allow our trained, you know, people that we brought in and trained on something in the multifamily industry, whether that's leasing or collections or maintenance or grounds? We've found people who are in need of permanent housing, and we brought them in and we've trained them. And now, would you give them a unit in
right.
lieu, or a discounted unit in lieu of the full rent, in order, and they will work on your property, which has been phenomenal. It's actually worked out at a few of our properties as well. And so I think I think that there's a lot of value in ending the cycle of poverty through housing first, which obviously multifamily can have a huge impact in. So I'm really glad that you brought that group up.
Yeah.
Um, so I love to end every episode asking you if you have a story about your experience in property management, anything that's happened to you, good, bad, funny, sad, however you want to share. We'd love to hear it.
Um, Okay, off the cuff, huh?
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I don't know about a story. I think that um, I think it's interesting based on some calls that I've had recently how a lot of things are coming full circle. I think a week or two ago, the three we spoke a little bit, and um, I mentioned one of the reasons possibly that more owners are becoming operators and bringing things in house. What we didn't talk about is how I'm seeing that tide turn back a little bit also, where I'm starting to see more and more where um, because of the need to save what they have and realizing that in some cases maybe they don't have the right infrastructure, maybe they're not properly set up for it, and even though there was a benefit to owner managing, um, there's more and more cases now where we're seeing some shakeup necessary. In fact,
Mhm.
lenders sometimes are driving those. So I just think we're in an interesting time. I think that it's the next 18 months or so is gonna be wild.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's gonna land. I hope we're still standing at the end of it. Um, and and you know, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I guess if I had to tell a story, it was meeting you, right? That's the story.
I will never forget that conversation. I was trying to sell Fortress at NMHC, and you sat down, and in 2 minutes, you were like, "I'm absolutely not interested, but I'll let you chat for 5 minutes, and then I'm out of here."
I'm gonna let Kerri tell it. She does better. Yeah.
That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I was not interested, and then all of a sudden, somehow, I became interested. There was some strings pulling something.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
we met with your team quite a bit, and I think you're anyway, there was a lot of synergy between what your team was looking for and what our team wanted, and it's been an awesome partnership. So,
yeah, it's been great, and
yeah,
it's going to continue to be great.
yeah.
And hopefully, we can help you guys with ideas and move forward. Also,
Yes, it's been a great partnership. Well, John, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. I know our listeners are going to enjoy hearing this, and even though you say that you're not very good at this, it was a great conversation. So,
well,
thank you.
thank you for having me. It's been great. This is an awesome setup.
Awesome.